This week in Wonderkids, we learned about pharmacology. To begin, we asked our students what they thought pharmacology meant. This is what many of them had to say.
I drew a plane. Instead of question mark. I have to guess in my first one is I think it is a place that sells medicine and makes medicine, and I also think that it is the study of how a drug will react to the human body. I drew a question mark.
I just had the question mark.
I drew a question mark.
On Friday, we had the pleasure to meet our amazing guest speaker, Dr. Kat, who taught us all about pharmacology.
Hi everyone, my name is Kat and I'm a scientist. So I went to school at the University of Laverne. I majored in chemistry. It was super fun, and while I was a student at Laverne, I was able to intern at a lot of really cool places all over the world. So I was able to travel all the way to the United Kingdom, where I did some research over there at Cambridge. I traveled to Japan, and then I even did a little bit of research closer at Caltech. And then after that, I got my PhD at UCLA, and just last year, we all moved to New York City, where I started my job as a scientist on the education team at Schrodinger. Pharmacology is the study of how medicine works. Pharmacologists are research scientists, so they're different from pharmacists. And sometimes in this talk, you'll hear me use the word drug because that's typically what scientists call medicines. So you'll hear me say medicine or drug, they mean the same thing in this particular talk. So there are a lot of different things that pharmacologists can focus on, and they're all pretty different, I would say. So pharmacology includes how medicines or drugs are made. Pharmacologists could also study how medicines interact in our body after we take a medicine. They also could study what harmful effects medicines could have, study all of those different side effects. And pharmacologists could also study how medicines prevent different illnesses or sicknesses. Because we have to look at all of these different properties before a molecule will even work the way that we want it to when you swallow it or when it's injected into you or any other type of form that it enters your body. For example, when you swallow a medicine, it has to stay inside of your body long enough to have an effect. It has to be able to dissolve in water. It has to get into your cell. And most importantly, it shouldn't be able to cause any other problems or be toxic. So when we're designing a new medicine, we have to make sure it checks all of these boxes and that they turn green in order for it to get to the pharmacy where you're able to buy the medicines. So when you're designing medicine, oftentimes there's a lot of unpredictability, which is why it's really important for scientists to also pair up with medical doctors in this whole process of designing new medicines. So it all starts with scientists. They go into a lab and they have an idea. Let's say they choose a disease that they want to make a medicine for. For example, a specific type of lung cancer. So they go into the lab, they choose the disease they want, they have an idea of what type of medicine they think could, potentially solve lung cancer, but they have to improve the idea based off of the boxes that we talked about in the slide before. So the second step is improving the idea here. The next step is making sure all of those boxes from the last slide turn green. And then at that point, you already spent $414 million just to even get it to this point, which is a lot of money. Then if everything looks good from the lab standpoint, then they're ready to test it in animals. And then from that point, once it looks good in smaller animals, then the scientists hand off what they think is the best molecule or the best medicine so far, and they hand it off to medical doctors for them to then test it in people. So they test it in a small group of people, and then a larger group of people, that's phase 2, and then an even bigger group of people, phase 3. And this whole process is called clinical trials. So after clinical trials, which basically means testing in people, then you get to the final stage of asking for government approval. And after all of these steps, then the medicine gets to the pharmacy, where pharmacists can then give the medicine to all of the patients. So can anyone guess how much money the entire process of making a new medicine costs?
I think it's 824 million or 954 million. 100.
It actually costs $2.5 billion on average. Isn't that crazy? That is so much money for one single medicine. Does anyone have a guess on how long this process takes?
I think it takes months.
Years?
It takes 10 to 15 years to make one new medicine. A very, very long process. But what we're trying to do is to use computers to help design new medicines, which helps speed up this process. And how we do that is we're able to test hundreds of thousands of possible drug molecules all at the same time, so it doesn't have to take this many years. So how does this work? How are you able to make drugs on a computer? Which you're probably wondering, that just sounds crazy. Let's first think of what a drug is made of. So can you guys tell me, what is the smallest thing that you can think of?
In ants? Atoms?
Atoms, that's a really great guess. Yes, atoms are super small too. Think of Legos like atoms. So Legos are sort of like atoms. So when you have, let's say, the smallest atom on a periodic table, that's a hydrogen atom. So you can think of the smallest Lego piece like this hydrogen. As it gets more complex, your Lego pieces can get much larger and more complicated depending on the type of element that you're looking at. So when we put all of these Lego pieces or atoms together, these are the guys that form molecules. It gets a lot more complicated than just using single Lego pieces. As you put all of the Legos together, you form molecules, or as you put more atoms together, you form molecules. Can anyone tell me how many green Legos they see this molecule here?
There are 6 green Lego pieces.
Yeah, that's great. That's right. There are 6 green Lego pieces. And can someone tell me how many blue Lego pieces there are?
12.
12, that's right. There are 12 blue Lego pieces. So if we pretended that the green Legos were carbons and the blue Legos were hydrogens, all of these different atoms come together to form a molecule. So this is a 6-membered carbon molecule. But what is quite interesting is that when we draw molecules on a piece of paper, or let's say as you're seeing it right now, doesn't it look pretty flat? But in reality, molecules are actually 3D and they take on a lot of really cool shapes. So when we look at molecules on a computer, this is what we actually see. The same one that you have shown here with 6 green Legos and 12 blue Lego pieces here. But when we look at it on a computer, it looks a lot different. So here, the gray circles are actually the green Legos that you counted, and there are 12 white hydrogen atoms. So this is what we see on a computer. It looks a lot different from what you see on a piece of paper just because it's more 3D. And we can even put a surface on that molecule to see different shapes. When you have even more atoms bonded together, you can make things called amino acids that then can come together even more. And when you have hundreds of thousands of atoms, these make up what are called proteins, and they are giant because they have so many more atoms in them. So now to put this all into context, bringing it back to what drug molecules are, let's pretend that you have a cold and you're coughing, you have mucus, and it's a little hard for you to breathe because of all of the mucus. So you decide to take cold medicine by swallowing a pill. So have you ever wondered, how does your body know how to deliver the medicine to the correct place inside of your body to help you get over the cold? So each medicine, like I said before, is made up of a molecule, and you can think of this molecule like a key. So this key is trying to find a lock inside of your body to help open up. So think of the lock like a protein. So remember, a protein is just a really big molecule that's made of hundreds of thousands of different atoms, but this protein is somewhere inside of your lungs. The medicine is trying to find in order to help you get over your cold. So when you take a medicine, it's called a lock and key process, where your medicine is the key and it's trying to find the lock that's inside of your body in order for you to, get better and get over your cold. So the drug pairs with the protein, they come together, and then when it finds each other in your body, then boom, that's how medicine works. So can anyone tell me what drug number you think will fit into this protein shape right here?
5.
5, that's right. The reason for that is because drug number 5 is a circle, and it's the only drug out of all 5 that fits into this protein cavity right here. So it's similar to how, medicines work. When you take a medicine, it's trying to find the exact protein that fits in its pocket, because if it doesn't, then it might not treat the correct disease that you're trying to heal. Pretty difficult in terms of all of the side effects that could happen. Sometimes you'll have a drug that could fit into multiple different proteins in your body, which is why sometimes when you take a medicine, you may get side effects that you weren't expecting to get. So that's why it's really important when you're designing a medicine, you try and find the best shape of your drug molecule so it fits almost perfectly to the protein inside of your body that you're trying to target. So just to go back to this lock and key process in your body, if you're sick, you take a medicine. This drug molecule is your key, and then the key is trying to find the lock in your body, which is a protein. And when the lock and key interact with one another, essentially what it does is it activates a signal in your body that delivers instructions to other parts of your body that teaches them how to heal and how to get better. So going off of that, because you guys solved that puzzle so quickly, pretend that the protein shape that you're trying to make didn't just have 5 drug possibilities, but it had 100 million different drugs, and you had to manually look through all the hundreds of millions of drugs to try and find the best drug molecule. That would take a really long time, huh? So that's why we use computers that help us sift through all of these possibilities, because it can do a much quicker job than our eyes can. So that said, what makes it a little complicated, and it's not as simple as just a lock and a key. The complicated thing is that proteins and molecules are actually always moving. So if you see this orange molecule here, this is your drug molecule. And notice that it's wiggling around. It's constantly changing its shape. So imagine it's like a key that's always changing what type of ridges are at the end here. But where it's trying to find is the best position in the protein, which is your lock, where it can fit into. So it's really trying to not only find where this protein is in your body, but it's also trying to find what spot in the protein where it can fit best. So this is really hard to see without a computer. So that's why we use computers, just because it helps speed up that process.
To conclude this week's lesson on pharmacology, we asked our students once again what pharmacology meant. This is what they had to say.
What I do is somebody making medicine and he's thinking T equals unlock.
I think pharmacology is making medicine and drugs.
Thank you.